Hey folks, I wanted to make a video showcasing this process of exporting and downloading Motorica animations and getting them onto our Metahumans for this project that we're working on for the informative animation. That being said, this is largely intended for the that project that I'm working on with my students. If you've come across this and you just want to import Motorica animation to Metahumans in Unreal, they do have an Unreal plugin, but mid-semester that's kind of hard to get working on all of our systems properly. So I'm just going to show this method of how to download it. What I've done is I've logged in, I've made myself an animation here, just a looping idle essentially with a straight character motion with a target speed of 0 and 0 for a duration of 10 seconds with the style of being afraid, just for this example. And I don't need to click generate animation, but if I did, like, it's just going to generate a similar animation to what we just looked at. 10 second, I did have loop turned on, so it will loop. So I'm ready to download that because I like these results. So I'm going to, up here in the top right, export out. And if we hop over to the downloads folder, we can see it there. Real quick, I would like to point out that I do have this Motorica Reese FBX fix file. And to talk about that really quickly, in fact, I'll have to pull up Motorica's website one more time, and particularly go to their Unreal Engine plugin documentation stuff. If we go to their downloads, we get these two FBX downloads. And essentially what I've done is I've reworked these so that they actually work, because what we found is importing the animation data, we get some renaming issues. And I've essentially downloaded this and renamed it. There's still a little bit of extra stuff we need to do to fix this up. But you do want to make sure to have this FBX fix. But if we take a look here, this is what I just downloaded. You can see the timestamp and all that good stuff, right? So I can rename this, and in fact I will, and I'll put Motorica_scared idle, something like that, right? So that way I know what I'm working with and what I've exported out. And let's start this process of getting it into Unreal. And the first step we need to do is actually take it into Maya. Because if we bring it into Unreal, and you can see here, the kind of what we're going to be getting into, but I'll make a new scene, don't save. If we take it directly into Unreal, we run into that issue of the renaming anyway. So I've found a way around that is to just pull it up into Maya and use the game exporter animation clips to just run through that again. What this also allows us to do is orient this properly. So I'm going to go into Maya with a new blank scene and say File, Import, and navigate to where I have that. And for me, it's the downloads folder. Make sure that your import is set to FBX, and we're good to go. We don't need to change any of these settings. We're fine. Just say import. And if we take a look, there's our animation. Awesome. And all we need to do now is re-export this. But you can see here over in the outliner, if I hold shift and expand all this, we get all the joints and names and everything. But there's this top level group we could reorient the space of this. So I'm going to actually export it as is and show you how that's not proper. And luckily we can just leave export all checked instead of selection, because it's all that this is animation data. This is not, there's no model in here or anything for us to export out. I'll go ahead and change the up axis from Y to Z. And in fact, I'll kind of come back and forth doing this, but in fact, I'll leave it to Y for now, and then we'll make a couple of exports here to just show you why that we're doing it this way. So under the animation clips, I'm going to make a new clip, and I'm going to say scared, idle, and I will add a prefix down here of, and I'll call it METArica. And underscore. The reason I'm calling it METArica is like we're exporting Motorica data out for a Metahuman, so I don't know. I don't know, leave me alone. I'm just being goofy. So start 0, end 300, and we're golden. So I'm going to say export all. I think we're good. I need to choose a directory. I'm just going to choose my downloads folder for now, but you all make sure to have your projects and stuff set up and know where you're saving this to. And we'll say export. Export successful. Awesome. So with all that being said, let's now hop over to Unreal and get all of this information imported. So this is the project file that I have set up for you all. And essentially what we need to start doing is getting up a level sequence and bringing everything in. But before we do that, we need to make sure to import these FBXs. So I'm going to pull up in my content browser, and I'll make a new folder down here. New folder, and we'll call this animations. And in that folder, I'll make another one, a new folder, and I'll call this body. And I'll open that one up, and this is where I'll start bringing in everything that we need. And very particularly, what I need first is to bring in the Motorica FBX. And then what I could do, and instead of calling that FBX, actually, what we can call it is Motorica model. And then I can say another new folder and say Motorica animation, or just anim for short, because that's pretty long anyway. So this is where I can bring in the FBX file that has the model and everything going for it, and then this is where I can bring in the animation. In fact, we don't even need to bring in the model, but I've found that it kind of just helps me visualize and see what I'm looking at as I retarget this animation. So I'm going to bring in that FBX fix that I provided for this project for you all, and I'll just click and drag, bring it down here. We pull this window open. This is just, again, the FBX file. We don't want to target it to another skeleton just yet. We're just going to by default import this in and say import all. There we go. So now I have my Motorica FBX in here. We can double click it to just take a look at their skeleton. It's very similar to what we've seen online. Golden. We're kind of set on that front. Nice. Oops, didn't mean to close content browser. There we go. So I'm going to hop back up now to my, not the model folder, but the animation folder. And I'm going to pull in the scared idle FBX. So I'll click and drag, pull that down here. And this is where we absolutely want to target this to that Motorica. There we go. And you can type here in the skeleton. We can click this. Oh, let's zoom in so we can see. You can, in the skeleton here, you can click this drop down and then type Motorica, because you can see all the metahuman stuff there, right? But we want to make sure to target this to the Motorica, and we're going to retarget this in a second. And we're going to say import. It's going to take it a second. And you can see here, right? Like the orientation is wrong. Like it's looking down. So let's try to like troubleshoot and fix this. And I'll show you the steps that I took. So the first step that I took was changing the up axis from Y to Z, and I'll say export again. I don't have to change anything. It's going to ask me if I want to override, and I say yep, export successful, and I can pop back here, close that preview window out, pull back open the content browser, right click and say re-import, and take a look at that, right? Didn't really fix it for us. It's like, all right, okay, cool, no worries. What we could do is go up to this main group joint, or not joint, I should say. It is the main group right above the root bone in here. And what we could do is reorient this. So I really want to rotate X back 90 degrees, but let me show you what that looks like first. So I'm going to say rotate X -90. And it's not doing it from the world origin. So it's going to be kind of floating and out of place. So the first step we need to do is actually to just move this pivot point to the world origin. And remember, we can do that by holding or pressing D or insert on your keyboard, like a toggle off and on. And then I can, manually move this, and I can hold X to snap to the grid. And when I get that how I'd like it, and I think that's it there, just snap to the world origin. Now I can go over to rotate X and say -90. And I can now export this out, export all, METArica, export, say yep, export successful. I hop back here, open my content browser and say right click, re-import. Luckily you won't have to do this. All you have to do is just, your first time through, you'll just have to hit -90 and re-enter that. Notice that we're kind of floating above the ground, and that's okay. Like, that's not too much of a worry. And you can even see why that is here in the engine, right? Or in the export. Like, it is floating a little bit above the ground. So if I wanted to, before I rotated that, I could push this down a little bit. In fact, I could use one of these side views to see. We don't have to do this by any means, and then we can say that rotate X -90. But let's just see, try it out and see what it does for us. And I'll come back here, open up content browser, and say re-import. take a look at the imported. Still nothing, and that's fine because I don't think it brings across that rotation or that translate data. So no need to worry there. Or maybe we need to do it this way. Let's try it this way. We're doing it live. Ba-da-da-da. This is something I hadn't planned for this project, but I don't know. I just feel like you all should be encouraged to do stuff like this too. Still not quite. Yeah, I didn't think it was bringing in that translate data. So, but I do feel like you all should be encouraged to troubleshoot on the fly, because I love to do that, and it kind of helps me in my animation process for various things. So we've got this imported now into Unreal, but like, what good does that do us? And because we need to get this onto our Metahuman, which very much isn't the case right now. So the first step in doing that is retargeting this, and I do believe I'll need another folder. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make one and just say new folder, and I'll say METArica retarget. Yeah, that's a little bit lengthy of a folder name, but maybe you could figure out a better naming convention. But that way I just have another folder that I can like retarget this stuff to. And what I want to do is right click that animation and then go up to retarget animations. This is a relatively newer thing. I think it's only been around for a year or less. And retargeting animations used to be a little bit more of an in-depth process, but we can click retarget animations. It's going to pull up this window here. And essentially we're saying, hey, my source skeleton is this Motorica Reese FBX fix, which is what I provided for you all. And my target is going to go to the Metahuman. So I can click this drop down and say Meta. And you're going to get a lot of options. The one that I found works the best for this retargeting is the m_med_nrw_body_preview. And the reason I find that works the best is because if we take a look at some of these other ones, just like the body here, it doesn't include clothing. And because our character has clothes and has jeans and shoes, we don't get to see the full body animation. But this body preview, we're still missing faces. You can kind of see it, like, we're missing the back side and the side of him, but we can see more of the body than we could not, or than we can't, rather, I should say. So I'm just going to say meta body preview, and then we got to click a couple things. We can say export retarget assets and then export animations. We'll have to select this as well. In fact, let's see if we can just export animations first, and because I want to know if we need the retarget assets. Because I can't recall off the top of my head in this moment, but I'm going to say export animations, and I've made myself that folder of the Motorica retarget, and I could give this a prefix of METArica or whatever you would like, and it's going to rename this animation METArica Scared Idol. In fact, I don't think I want to do that because it's going to do METArica Scared Idol, and then it's going to just put another METArica in front of it. So I'm going to put a prefix of RT_, and then that way I know it's retargeted. It's been retargeted from the Metahuman, or I'm sorry, from the Motorica information to the Metahuman. There we go. That's the words I was looking for. And we'll say export. And yep, we're fine with these settings. So just say export, bada boom, and there we go. In fact, we didn't need to export out those, the assets anyway. But if we double click this, we can see our Metahuman now with that animation that we got from Motorica. Again, though, what good does this do us if it's not in our scene on our character? Well, as we've done previously, we need to make sure that we need to have a level sequence. So I'm going to click up here, and I'll make a add level sequence, make a new one. I'll just put it in my content folder. Informative animation. Name it whatever you would like. So if you're running from bees, it'll be bees information, whatever you want to call it, right? And it should by default just open that automatically, but I did already have my sequencer open. Yeah, so yeah, it's fine. I just kind of confused myself there, but I don't even need this content browser, the secondary one, so I'm going to close it. And I have this take recorder and live link up for the facial stuff, which I'll do in another video in another lecture, but just kind of wanted to quickly talk about that. All right, so I need to make sure to bring in Omar or your Metahuman into our sequence. So click and drag him from the outliner all the way over here to the sequencer. Then we drag and drop. There we go. And now we get our nice control rig. We get all of this information here, and we're kind of good to go in starting to add animation to this fella. I'm going to do this incorrectly and talk about like why I did it incorrectly, but also more importantly, I want to talk about how to fix it. But the first step is up here under body. What we want to do is click the plus track. In fact, let me zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. So we'll have our BP blueprint, is what BP stands for, OMAR, body control rig. So notice that that's under the body. We have our control rig, which is just like our Maya controls for animating characters. And then we have our face and our face control rig. We'll come back to this in the future as well, but I'm going to go to the body plus sign, and I'm going to go all the way up to animation. And this is where I can search that RT underscore, and that's going to bring up any animation that I've retargeted if I put that prefix of RT on them. Really easy naming convention to help us out there. And I will click METArica Scared Idle. And you can see that's loaded that in for us. So let's zoom out. But if I scrub through, nothing's playing. And the reason that is this control rig is absolutive, which means absolute? I don't know how to pronounce that properly. I'm a professor. Leave me alone. It means that it's absolutely controlling everything about this character. So like this is only going to be how this character gets animated, is this control rig. So how do we fix that? Easy. Under the body, we have our animation and then our control rig. Select the control rig and delete. So now if I zoom out and we start playing through our animation, we get our nice scared Omar. It looks ominous here in this scene that I've set up. But yeah, we have Omar. He is scared, and this is working well for our purposes. Notice that the animation length is longer. I can hold control and zoom out here and increase that time if I so choose. I think I generated 10 seconds of animation. Cool. So I could, continue forward. I could bring in multiple idles, or I'm sorry, not multiple idles, but multiple animations at this point. Or do whatever, what have you. But I think that this is in a decent spot for now. Okay, so additionally, what we could do is bring back that Metahuman control rig to animate on top of this. Because, like, look how far his neck is rotated back. The dude looks wonky and odd, right? Just looks bad. And let's bring that back. So all I have to do is go down back to body, hit the plus, and then I'm going to go up to control rig. First off, we need to make sure layered is checked on. This is what's going to allow us to bring that control rig back, keep our current animation, but edit the animation layered on top of it. So I'm going to click that layered icon, or that layered button. Then I'll go to control rig classes and make sure to select the Metahuman control rig. So now we have those controls again, and we can edit the animation a little bit with these controls. So I'm going to select his neck, rotate it a little bit forward, and then I'll do the same thing for his head, rotate a little bit forward as well. So now when I scrub through, we get that same animation, but we've slightly reoriented his head control. And the cool thing about this stuff too is, like, if you're ever like, oh no, I need to just redo this animation, this looks bad, I could just select that layer, delete it, and bring it back in just like I did a second ago. Or if I want to preview the changes that I've made, over here on the left side, we can either lock this to prevent future changes, mute it so this is all we're seeing, or hit that kind of no symbol to kind of like remove its current influence. Cool. In fact, what I want to do is I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to generate another animation, bring it in, and show you how we can blend those together. All right, I've got it back to this point where I'm in the retargeter. I don't know if I talked about this or not, but in the retargeter window, once we set up our source animation and our target animation, we can double click the animations down here to preview them here just to make sure everything is looking decent. I'm going to go to Goblin Idol that we're going to transition into here. I just wanted to talk about that because I don't know if I said we could double click and just preview that. I'll say export animations, and again, just going back to that Motorica retarget folder, again, prefix RT underscore, say export, and then now we have our retargeted Goblin Idol that we can preview here. Oh, he's kind of reminded me of the dude from, I can't remember his name, but he is a Star Wars guy, played star killer in the Force Unleashed video games, and then later went on to voice Darth Maul and such. So I'm going to bring in another animation down here. I'm going to click the plus animation, and I'll do RT underscore. There we have our goblin. And essentially what I could do is have these two, if I wanted a transition between these two, what Unreal does when we add a new one is it layers them separately, but we can click and drag them over top of each other, I believe. I thought we could. Maybe we have to get closer to the end here to do that. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we could kind of like blend between these two. In fact, I know we can. Let me pause and remind myself how to do this. Okay, I remember it. My bad. So all I did was misclick, and I just did the wrong area. So I went back to the body and added another layer, but when in reality I need to do it on the animation layer that we already have that has our scared idol. So I just need to click plus here. It's already looking for animations. I need to say RT to bring in that goblin. So now we have both the scared and the goblin. But if you take a look, if I scrub past like the transition between them now, it's like layering on top of them, and it's not blending in between. Like it's just a pop and then another pop. So what we could do is then now drag these on top of each other, and Unreal gives us, there we go. Unreal gives us this blend that we can like transition between the animations, and you can see that now. Instead of it, animating all at once and popping all at once, we actually get a transition of that animation. And don't forget, like, I keyframed his head a little bit differently, head and neck, right? Sorry for the hiccup. I believe you used that neck control and the head control. So I'll just grab both of them, and I'll keyframe these. So I can grab those. You can see an eye sequencer down here, head and neck. And then once we go into this position, I can raise those back up to be, to let this guy truly go goblin mode. So he goes, "Mama, I'm gonna get you. I've got a knife." I don't know, whatever goblins say. All right, and you could just like start exporting tons of Motorica animations and bringing them in this way. There's also ways we can bring in other motion capture data animation in as well, as far as this goes. But this is kind of the first step for the body animations, and then we'll discuss the face animations here soon, because it's a pretty straightforward process as well, with little help from ChatGPT, which I know my students are always happy to hear from and hear about. Any comments, questions, or concerns, feel free to reach out, but I think this should get us going. Real quick, just to talk about, we can, in our sequencer down here, we don't have to just add in characters and animations. We can also add in audio. So we can add our music in. We can add in other, fades and fun stuff down here as well. So just recognize that, we can bring in a lot of stuff in here and do a lot of work here in Unreal rather than having to do it later. But a lot of the times for audio, what I would bring into Unreal is just like a temporary thing that I would not keep for forever, and then later kind of adjust. All right, that's all I got. Take care.